get started. The board of directors from the Audubon Clubhouse has invited both Mayoral candidates. Hey, no, you know what? Go ahead. Nobody's here. Okay, the board of directors from the Audubon Clubhouse has invited both mayoral candidates to participate in tonight's town hall lightning round. But first, I'd like to start with the pledge of allegiance. So if you please join me in the pledge of allegiance. This is an important time for the City of Homestead. The economy has picked up. We're one of the few communities that still has developable land in the greater Miami area, and we're getting a lot of attention. Decisions that are being made now and for the next 2 years will have an effect on our community for years to come. This having been said, using input from our residents, we've prepared some questions for you two gentlemen. We'd like to present these to you on an alternating basis. Request that you limit your answers to 3 minutes, which is at least the same time limit the residents have when they address the city council. What I was planning on doing is after 2 minutes, I'll hold my hand up. After 3 minutes, you'll get the. Okay, so let's get started. First question will go to Mayor Lawson. On a day-to-day basis, as they look around, our residents see a large volume of residential construction and a significant increase in traffic volume, particularly at the peak times of the day in our part of the city. In our part of the city, the problem appears to be most acute in the north-south direction. In this context, the last overall traffic study for the city was completed in 2007 under Mayor Warren. What is your vision for the future of traffic in Homestead?
And thank you all for putting this together. I appreciate all of you coming out tonight. Traffic is just such a multifaceted issue. I mean, it's easy to point to the overdevelopment decisions of the last 10 or 12 years that occurred before I was elected mayor, but it's more than that. I think that if we can, and I believe we're on the cusp of this, create and attract job creators here, we can alleviate traffic and long commute time. At least you don't have as far to go. Clearly, there's road work to be done to catch up with. Unfortunately, when developments are proposed, they provide traffic studies, and it really has to be a dismal situation for there not to be traffic concurrency. And let's remember, a large portion of the developable area or area that's been developed in the last few years claims an exemption from concurrency. So, we're going to create jobs. We're already working on getting the county down here. We've got a new transportation and public works director. It started with, to me, as an aside, aesthetics are very important. It had to do with broken, crooked, damaged, and missing signage. We've got to address that. And the county staff is going to be coming down and looking at those needs, as well as the local surface road enhancements. We have some issues coming up in the next few months in the Transportation Planning Organization, of which I'm a member, to program in some funding. It's been suggested that all of the city should pave and widen all the intersections. And I would say that we can't pave our way out of the problems that we face now. It's just not realistic. Who's going to pay for that? There's some federal funding available to the city. There's some state money, but prior administrations let the pace of development get so far ahead of us that I'm just not certain that we can really pave our way out of that problem. I have proposed several times in the last couple of years a building moratorium to limit within certain exceptions and to the ability we could, a moratorium on any development in excess of 6 units per acre, so that we can update these road studies, so that we can get a handle not only on our transportation needs, but garbage service. I probably have gotten more emails lately on my trash or bulk waste has not been picked up this week. With every new house, that's another stop. Sooner or later, there's going to have to be another truck, another crew. There's just a whole plethora of issues that are created by overdevelopment. Traffic is just one of those. The problem didn't happen overnight. We're not going to solve it overnight, but we have been taking the steps to address the surface road issues throughout the city. I believe there were opportunities to address some of that when Chrome Avenue was improved, and I don't know if it was staff, I don't know if it was council, but they missed the boat. When I came into office, the Chrome Avenue work was almost finished. We could have asked for those intersections and roadways to be widened and signalized differently at that point, and they weren't. So we have to recognize that there were some missed opportunities and address what we can reasonably address. I'm not going to sit here and promise you things that are just not deliverable in terms of cost or just really the logistical ability to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk about Homestead and its future. I think that we are in a crucial time here in the City of Homestead. We all recognize that. And so, traffic, yes, I've been speaking about that. I'm a network engineer, IT analyst. I think in a certain way, my job on a daily basis is about solving problems. It's kind of how I found myself here running for the City of Homestead. When I grew up here since 5 years old, moved inside the city limits with my wife and my 2 children in 2005, where I was able to purchase one of the new homes on the east side of Homestead, Malibu Bay, and that's where I got involved here in the community. Got involved, was the president of the homeowner association. I became the chair of the community development district. And it was there that I realized how prior council didn't do a good job. And it launched me to get involved. And I'll talk about that soon, but when I moved into Homestead or the city limits, it was in 2005 where all the east side, the new development is happening. That was prior to me even getting involved in the local politics. But all that was done prior to my time. When I became a council member in 2009, it was there that we were heading down from the boom to the bust. We saw this development and it slowed down. And it was there when I came on council that we realized we need to move quick to expand our roads. So through the county, and I'm hearing it being said that it's impossible. I go, well, I don't have limitations. I believe that things are possible. And I'm going to work hard to make sure to make the impossible possible. The same way we expanded 312th Street when we came on. Well, 312th Street actually was right before me. 328th Street, finally, we got the county to finally deliver that after 3.5 years. That was a county project. We worked with them. We worked on 344th Street to continue to develop those roads, as well as Chrome Avenue, which was just mentioned. Let's talk about the reality that we're facing today. And you need to do something about traffic. We have to solve it now because Homestead, we've developed a lot of, it's been growing already, but the problem is we are now the center of South Dade. The Rancho, the Redlands, and Florida City do not have the limitations that we have in development that I've been able to hold the line while I was in office. You can't shop in the Rancho. You cannot shop in the Redlands. And you cannot shop in Florida City. All roads now lead into Homestead. And so the traffic that you're seeing is not so much the development here in Homestead, it's development around us that are coming into Homestead. It's amenities. And so as the chair of the Transportation Committee for the Florida League of Cities, I understand the policy, legislative policy, and how to get the money, who to work with to make sure that we get the funding to solve our traffic issues. I don't want to four-lane every single road, but we need to be able to four-lane the correct roads to make sure that they have turning lanes. Because how many times have we not got stuck in a two-lane road and sat there for over 10 minutes because of inadequate roadway and inadequate traffic signalization. And again, when I came in office, that was what was in place. So I will work hard with the county and the state to make sure that we solve those problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question is for Mr. Maldonado. Each candidate, each candidate has highlighted the fact that their opponent has received campaign funds from developers. What can you tell the voters about developer funds that you have received, and what, if any, consideration the developers expect in return for these contributions?
Thank you. That's a great question. Funny, right? I asked so many times I speak to the voters, and that question is asked of me. They say, "Why did you take any developer money?" And I quickly ask them. I said, "Well, can I ask you for a check of $100 or $1,000 or $500? Because I want to make sure that I'm elected and I'm representing the city." And so when I do ask them the question, they kind of turn their head sideways. They look at you. No, I'm not going to donate to you. But there's obviously people who have an interest, an invested interest in the City of Homestead. And what they want is someone that they can sit down and talk. All they've asked, anyone who's ever made a contribution to me, whether it's a homeowner, whether it's someone who's a developer, whether it's someone where it's a business owner here in Homestead, all they ask is that I want to sit down and talk to you. And all I want is someone who's willing to work with us and not just shut the door on us, which has happened in the past here. So that's the answer that I always give to everyone that I speak to, and that's your answer as well.
Thank you. Mayoral.
Well, that's interesting, because what I think I just heard is that in exchange for this donation, I want you to sit down and talk with me. So to me, that sounds like it's buying access. Anyone who has ever contacted me has gotten a response and an audience with me. Face it, I was the underdog in the last mayoral campaign, and there are a whole lot of folks still doing business with the city and who want to do business with the city, who call the mayor and need to talk to the mayor. I'm not thinking about who gave me money for the last campaign or who didn't. That is not what it's about. Money is not about the access, and that has no bearing on my thought process whatsoever. Now, it is absolutely correct that given the population of this city and the geographical size of the city that we have now, it's expensive to run a mayor's race and a hotly contested council race. It takes money. You know, grassroots only goes so far. Many times, if not most of the time, that money shows up. You don't go out, at least when you're an incumbent, and sometimes when you've got a past history of incumbency, it shows up. It's not even requested. But let's start talking about being honest about who has received what. I have people email me pictures of the nasty flyers they get about me every day and talk about that I've taken $100,000 from developers. Well, you know what? It's true. Since 2019, and about half of that was used in the 2019 mayor's race, a political action committee that is supportive of my candidacy received that from folks from all over the place. received $100,000 in this race. Not by any stretch of the imagination. And it's not all developer money. But by that same logic, accusing me of taking $100,000, if you look at my opponent's reports and go back to the beginning of the pack that is supportive of him, he's north of $200,000 in really big chunks of development money. But it's not really honest to say that, and it's not really honest for him to intimate that in this cycle, developers have given me $100,000. So to answer your question, whether you give me 0, 10, 100, or $1,000, you always get the same consideration from me. Thank you.
Okay, next question is from Mayor Luster. Over the past few years, the Village of Homestead golf course has been in and out of the news. Our residents still wonder what will be the fate of the golf course and the surrounding undeveloped property. What can you tell us about your vision of the future of the golf course?
Unfortunately, vision might get tangled up in land rights and litigation that goes on forever and slick talking lobbyists. Now, let's be really clear. I'm not aware that a development application has been filed that would impact that property. I understand there's been a lot of delegate meetings and a lot of talk, but I am not aware that an actual application has been filed. I would suspect that based on what I've been hearing for the past several years, that at such time as an application comes forward, there's going to have to be some legal opinion or some good staff guidance somewhere telling me that A, this developer is asking to cannibalize all or part of the golf course, and that's okay, or B, the covenants don't allow that, or it has to be used for open space or for a golf course. So, clearly in a perfect world, we would have large estate-type homes on larger lots surrounding a lush 18-hole championship golf course. That would be my vision. As to what the reality is going to be, it's all conjecture at this point. And I'm going to have to look to, and I hope that residents that are the most impacted fill the council chambers, and at the time we make those decisions, as for any land use applications that come in, I hope the chambers are packed and we've got 50 people who all want to utilize their 3 minutes to weigh in. Because I always keep in sight that it's about it's a balance. What the residents want versus land rights. And there's always that balance there. And again, there's nothing before us, and it's all just conjecture, and it's almost like a 3D puzzle. It's just a multi-layered question. I will tell you that, generally speaking, whatever abuts the fairways in that area, if it's developed, has got to be compatible. My vision in general would be estate-type homes on larger lots throughout the city. That's where I would come from on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Just ask the question one more time.
Okay. Over the past few years, the Village's Homestead golf course has been in and out of the news. Our residents still wonder what will be the fate of the golf course and the surrounding undeveloped property. What can you tell us about your vision for the future of the golf course?
Thank you. I want to make sure I heard your question properly, because I just heard the mayor saying that he's not aware of anything that's come before him, where clearly we had the owners of the property and the developer come before the city council and just move, and our current mayor just approved to move a good portion of there's about 189 homes, I believe, that's being moved in the DRI over to that area of whether golf course. And in that conversation, there was talk about the future of the golf course. And they couldn't speak on it because they weren't at the site plan level to be able to say whether they were going to approve it or not. But the developer itself and its representative that came before this current council within the last 2 years know that their intent is to develop the property and finish building the golf course. And so there was the Lennar developer, put it on the record, and we can pull that up. They came before council and they spoke and said, we are going to make sure that the golf course is built. And so, but we're not there at that process. And so we know that, unfortunately, those residents are suffering, their property rights are suffering, they're losing money because that golf course is not finished. It's open, it's built. Yes, the owner purchased it. It was, according to them, or they closed it down because it wasn't making any money. And there it is, sitting there, empty. And so, but they spoke about it. They want to develop a 9-hole golf course, fix the clubhouse, and they're going to want to develop the other portion of the 18-hole golf course. It was said in that meeting. So I'm not sure how we're saying that we're not aware of any discussion where I can clearly recall, and I would be more than happy to provide that information in a link to say otherwise of what's being spoken about.
Okay, if we can, let's be honest about that 189 acres, or the 189 units. Those 189 units had by a prior council.
Because I heard it, I'm sorry, Mr. Lozar, I apologize. I apologize for
Well, let's look to the moderator and see what they're doing.
I think in the interest of the people who are present, we'll give Mayor Losman a minute for rebut, and if somebody else comes up.
Right, yeah, I don't have a problem because I just, according to what was sent to us, I just want to make sure that we're going to have questions and then we're going to go forward. And
If you agree, we can do that. If you don't want to agree, we can not have your vote. I guess
I was just going according to
Sure.
what you guys proposed, which was, to be fair, is that in the discussion it was said, we're going to ask the questions,
Yes.
we're not going to get into any debates about it, our answers will be our answers.
Well, that's a fair request, so let me say this, that if both candidates agree to a 1-minute rebuttal, if you request it, we'll do that. If you don't want to do that, we won't.
It will be a rebuttal from both sides, regardless of that.
1 minute if you request it.
I'm fine with that on any question, all right.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so Mayor Losman, you'll have 1 minute.
Okay. Let's be honest about what that movement of those 189 units were. With his vote, a prior city council moved those 189 units from somewhere else into the Park of Commerce, an area that was slated for job creation. My opponent and his council colleagues, including those that are now endorsing him, moved those 189 units. A lawsuit was brought by a third party. They were required to move those units, okay? They had to be put somewhere. Just because that density is there does not mean it's going to be utilized. And it's absolutely true. There's got to be site plan approval and plat approval. Just the moving of 189 units into that sector, and that sector is huge. Don't be misled by the comments that say those 189 units are going on the golf course, because that sector goes far beyond the boundaries of that golf course.
That's
Thank you.
1 minute.
Thank you. Again, he's talking about a previous number, it was a different number. I'm talking about a current number that happened while he was in office, where they allowed a certain number and they approved a certain number of units to be moved into that area the same way they moved them last time. Where, let's just say the number was 189 last time, and the units we moved them, they did it again here currently on the current property. And so there's been one shift of numbers, and here's another shift of numbers. There's another set of homes that they allowed and approved to be moved on the current location that we're talking about, which is on the golf course.
Okay, let's move on. All right, Mr. Maldonado, going back to roads in this part of the city, potholes are a very frequent occurrence. The 2020 Homestead Comprehensive Annual Financial Report says that 7.2 miles of street were repaved, but we haven't seen any part of that on our side of the city, and our roads are deteriorating. What is your plan for repaving in our community?
Thank you. When I first moved into Homestead, I moved into Malibu Bay, the east side, the new part of town, where everything was repaved, brand new, nice, straight, everything nice, paid by our community development district dollars. I moved in 2019 from Malibu Bay, and I live in Keys Landing. And to be honest, I really never traveled this back road here because my route was always from 312 out west, because as a network engineer, I service the agricultural community, and up in Miami. I mostly work here at home. I'll also have a business base here in this area. But when I moved into Keys Landing, boy, was I shocked at the holes that were here. And I realized, because I live in Keys Landing, and I hear the trucks, and I hear all the cars, and the motorcycles, and the ATVs. Folks in Keys Gate, I now feel your pain. I used to hear your pain, but now I feel it because my actually home backs that road. And so on a daily basis, we're seeing these large holes that are being created by the heavy usage of the fill. There's a rock pit that everyone is aware of, where they're constantly blasting. And when they're blasting, and I know that, I felt those blasts myself in my home now that I live in Keys Landing, and I see the trucks on a daily basis rolling in the roadway. When I realized that, I actually went to City Council, went up on the dais, and you can look up the video, and I said exactly what I'm saying here today. We need to make sure that someone is being held accountable for the impact that those trucks are making, because that's not being made by the regular traffic. That is being made by those trucks. And I've even seen where one dump truck dropped a large load of rocks and basically was just left there. Our city staff had to use our dollars to go move that off to the side and pick it up. And we have kind of put Band-Aids on those roads. And so if God willing, and if you folks vote me in, I will work to make sure those holes, we already got some of the pavements done already after I went up there and fought for it, so I'm going to continue to fight to make sure that we finish the rest of that road. And it's a county road, so that's why I say we need to work with the county legislator to get them to do their job like we've done in the past.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's a really shocking proposition that you got a mayor, a wannabe mayor, who never voted against anything in Keysgate, is now placing the blame on the downright dump trucks coming out of our fill pit for tearing up the road on their way to put fill in that god-awful 770 home unit development right outside of Centergate, which was a density shift that this one approved. And now all of a sudden we're going to pursue the dump trucks separately. Now look, they pay fees, they pay gas tax, and there's a way to do that. But it's just laughable that that's seriously thrown out there. And look, the road conditions again did not happen overnight. And look, let's face it, as long as we know the development is going on, are we going to go find and spend the tens of millions of dollars to rebuild them the way they need to be rebuilt? No. We're going to have to continue doing the patching that's necessary, but to sit here with a straight face and suggest that that we're gonna go after the users of the road. Who's next? That's a laughable solution. But potholes are not endemic to the villages of Homestead. They are everywhere. And it's due to years of neglect. And I want to point something else out. You have somebody who wants to be the mayor of the entire city who has admitted that he came home, went up Campbell Drive, and went behind the gates in Malibu Bay and really had no clue as to what was going on in the rest of the city. Folks, I'm all over this city every week. I know what's going on. I know the job that faces us. It's incredible the neglect that has happened from 2009 to 2019. We've got an enormous job ahead of us. I'm the guy that's out on the streets because it's my job, because it's my obligation, not because I went house jumping to run for other office when I resigned from my seat early.
Mr. Baldwin,
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, it is kind of shocking, as he says, that I approved a 770 unit development here. But isn't it funny enough, that's correct. Those folks that are doing the rock mining were here way before I moved into the city limits and got on council. And this has been a problem way before I got on council, and it is still a problem today. And so I will tell you that all that fill that they were mining was not for the 770 unit, but all the new homes of Waterstone, Malibu Bay, Oasis, and all the new part of east side of Homestead, which this current mayor was on the board when it happened. Let the facts be straight. He was up there when they approved and allowed the development on the east side, and they needed all the fill that is being used. So they've been here a long time, and they've been impacting these roads all the time for all the development that's been left here.
okay, let's move on to the next question.
No rebuttal?
Yeah, well, I mean, he has a little, okay, he has a minute, he just have a minute to rebut.
All right, let's be real clear. That fill, the dredging agreement that was entered into long before I was on council limits the placement of that fill to within the development of regional impact, which is generally defined as the original Keys Gate development. So again, ignore that shiny object he's dangling out here. That does not include Waterstone, it does not include Malibu Bay. It's just not factual.
Okay. Do you want a minute or we move on?
The only thing I would say is that, again, he's correct in the sense of saying that the fill is not allowed to move out of the DRI, but the pit that he's talking about is the one closer to the track that was owned by the developer, as well as the city actually had ownership of it. But the rock pit I'm talking about that is behind the Keys fairways off behind the Homestead Senior High School does not have any restrictions at all. So just a lawyer doing this thing, telling you that the blue shirt you're wearing is actually red.
I think it's time to move on to the other show now. Okay, the next question will be from Mayor Lawson. The 2020 Comprehensive Annual Report says that Homestead Station reported a deficit during the period of July 1st, 2019 to July 1st, 2020. Coupled with this appears to be the fact that a charge for using the parking garage, which had previously been free, has been recently introduced. What can you tell us about the financial status of Homestead Station and your plan going forward?
Okay, let's remember, Homestead Station is really 4 components. There is the entertainment venue, the bowling alley, the movie theater, and the arcade. That's component 1. Component 2 is the mostly empty retail spot. The 3rd component is the parking garage, and the 4th component is the librarian. So without having that report in front of me, I don't know, as to which component or where those numbers are coming from. We, they're, as to the parking garage, we just instituted the feet apart. That was always in the works. That was programmed by prior administration, prior city manager, and but for COVID, it would have been implemented. Homestead Station, generally, the debt that the city has is generally covered by revenues from different dedicated state and county funds. Could you run that? The report shows a deficit of.
It just said there's a deficit, so it didn't say what the deficit was.
Okay, and your question then?
Well, what can you tell us about the financial status of Homestead Station, which is, I think, what you're doing?
Well, okay, again, you need to understand that we being the city, do not manage or control either the entertainment portion or the retail portion. The retail portion is under a 99-year lease. The holder of that lease has farmed out the management rights to a third party. As we are emerging from COVID, the mayor and the current council are all now looking to the manager saying, hey, we need to know what's going on there. We need to know who their prospects are. What are the rental rates? I've heard from attorneys in town and other real estate agents in town that they're just totally out of the realm of reasonableness. So we're now about to sit down with that management company and have a better handle as to what's going on there. And, if necessary, go back to our lessee of that project and talk about how we need to be involved more closely as a city. But, right now we're operating under a plan that was adopted prior to 2019. We talked about that last night.
Thank you. Mr. Maldonado, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
The 2020 Comprehensive Annual Report says that Homestead Station reported a deficit during the period of July 1st, 2019 to July 1st, 2020. Coupled with this appears to be the fact that a charge for using the parking garage, which had previously been free, was recently introduced. What can you tell us about the financial status of Homestead Station and your plan going forward?
Yes, thank you. That Homestead Station was a vision that came from a vision session that the mayor and council, while I was there, we had. We went out to the community to find out what is it that we need to do in Homestead. And there was a lot of folks who talked about, please do not let downtown Homestead die because of all the development that was allowed to happen on the east side, which clearly drew all the attention and all the restaurants to the east side. And so the west side was left alone. And so the citizens asked, what are we going to do? Now, we wanted to make sure that we didn't let it die. And so we went and asked, what do you want? We want a bowling alley, movie theater, entertainment, which is what people are still asking for today. And why? Because everyone leaves Homestead because we didn't have those amenities. And so we did spend time to go out and find a partnership. We did a P3 partnership, public-private partnership, that made sure that we own the land. We leased the land out to the folks who own the movie theater bowling alley. They were going to develop it. They were going to manage it. Part of that is correct. That parking garage was for the future transportation that is going to come down to Homestead, which is right now is going to be the bus rapid transit system. And then right after that, when you have, the homes of more ridership, in the future, we're going to have a light rail coming all the way down to Florida City. And that is why the parking lot is there. If you look at it, it says Miami-Dade and Homestead. And if you look at it, it's for the parts of those spots are for transit people who are going to be riding that bus. And that transit area is going to be right there where the busway is. And so it was going well. It opened well. I even can recall seeing some pictures. Mayor, I remember seeing you there as well, partaking in the celebration of the opening of that. And I saw many residents happy to see that. Unfortunately, COVID hit and it stopped everything just like across the nation. But I believe that it's going to come back. I don't know right now because I'm not in office. I haven't spoken to currently with the manager in regards to that, but I believe it's going to move forward.
Thank you. Next question is for the mayor. The 2020 Comprehensive Annual Report also says that the city government had a $3 million deficit in the business type activities category at the end of the year. What can you tell us about the overall financial condition of the city and your plan going forward?
Thanks to taking a good hard look at the expenses in the budget and getting rid of a lot of fluff. One example that comes to mind, when I was on council the first time from 2001 to 2007, one Cracker Jack council assistant took care of all 7 of us. By the time 2019 rolled around, they had hired 4 council assistants. You know how much one council assistant's base pay is? $65,000 a year for a secretary for part-time employees. That's plus pension, plus health insurance and all the other benefits. We're now down to 2 council assistants. That's just one glaring example. But we're in good shape. The tax rate has remained flat for many, many years. As a result of new construction and sales going on the books, increasing taxable value, the general fund portion of the tax revenue went up about almost $2.2 million last year. But I think one of our greatest accomplishments in the last 2 years is that despite a huge decrease in funding from other sources, the county and the state, sales tax, gas tax, even surtax, we were able to keep the tax rate the same. We didn't borrow from reserves, and we also found a way to hire last year 5 new police officers, and this year 4 new police officers, plus equip the entire department of the men and women on the street with body cameras, which provides safety for them as well as the public. All without raising taxes, all without cutting services. Like this manager, this mayor, and a good number of those on this council are far more attuned than they used to be to the expense side of the budget. Real quickly, we're looking at enhancing revenue, lots of business opportunities coming in. The City Hall site, the cryptocurrency proposal, there's a lot of potential with doing deals out of the racetrack to bring in income from those events. It's about monetizing the assets we have. It's not letting city assets become a drain. For example, the debt service on the City Hall site, $662,000 a year. If we allow that to be redeveloped, that's going to go away. It goes right back into the budget. So to answer your question, I think we're in pretty good shape going forward.
Okay, Mr. Maldonado, would you like to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
The 2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report also says that the city government had a $3 million deficit in the business type activities category at the end of the year. What can you tell us about the overall financial condition of the city and your plan going forward?
Thank you. You know, I'm glad to hear how the mayor the last 2 years was able to, let me hold it thought. It's interesting that when I came into office in 2009, and you folks have been here for a long time, you remember that the city, the prior council, was always taking money from the utility department to cover the budget. When I came into office in 2009, we were in the negative, in the red, millions of dollars. So, but by the time I left in 2019, we had a balanced budget, never done here in the City of Homestead history. And that happened while I was on council. So, whatever benefit that you're seeing today and not continue, by the way, when I was up there, we not once raised the taxes, not even the millage rate. And I'd like to, and I know people are arguing me saying that that has happened. Look it up. We never raised taxes. The millage rate never went up. And if you recall, when we went through the recession, you never lost any services. The services stayed the same the whole time. As well as we never fired not one employee. And we did that by every year working to cut the fat out of the budget and solve any inconsistencies within the budget. And by the time I left there 3 years in a row, we had a balanced budget. And so now that the council that I was there with for 10 years, we were able to right the ship that was sinking for so many years. For historically, they've always taken from the utilities department to cover those that negative balance in the budget. And so I recall our mayor saying, well, in the 10 years that I was there, I was only able to hire, how many was it? 5 police officers? It was because we were doing it all while working from the red, cutting the fat, making sure everything is working properly, not firing anyone, giving the services, and finally delivering a balanced budget. And now, and remember, this was all happening from the boom to the bust to the boom again. And so now we don't have that deficit that we had when I came in office, where we lost millions of dollars and we're still able to keep that level of service that did not negatively impact the city. And so, and I want to say something about cutting the fat, because from my understanding, he had mentioned as well that when he was there was only one person running the council. My question is, why is he the only one up there that has his own assistant as well? And he hasn't said anything about getting rid of them.
Sure, that's just not true. There are 2 council assistants that serve all of us. My council assistant, coincidentally, takes care of all the male members of the council, and the other council assistant takes care of the women on council. I do not, the mayor does not have a dedicated council assistant. That is just not true. Never, this mayor has never had his own exclusive dedicated council assistant. Never.
Okay, if we move on, or do you want a minute? Let's move on. Okay, Mr. Maldonado. As one of the last developable industrial areas in Homestead, properties in the villages of Homestead, Park of Commerce have gained a lot more attention recently. The development of this land should be used to bring jobs to Homestead, yet big companies such as Copart and Florida Power and Light have used their muscle to bring in projects that benefit their interests and provide few, if any, jobs. What can you tell us about your plans for the villages of Homestead, Park of Commerce?
Thank you. You know, I think sometimes, you know the saying, you have to be at the right place at the right time, and that's where I feel like where I'm at today. Right now, currently, we are talking about, and the mayor mentioned it, and I'm not sure if you folks know or not, but there are companies that are looking to come down to Homestead to develop what we call blockchain mining farms. And though that product is looking to move in not only the Speedway, but also within the industrial park. And so we need to really understand what's coming down the pipe. And I believe strongly, I strongly believe that Homestead is on the cusp and providing the types of jobs that we don't have to do to leave Homestead and travel. They're called jobs that have to do with technology. I'm a network engineer. I don't have to drive to Miami. I don't have to drive anywhere. I work from home. I make my living by remotely listening to my clients in fixing their computers or providing them solutions, building up servers. And so I make a good living where I'm able to support my family through technology. And that's the language that we need to start talking about the future. Because the future is changing, and we need to make sure that we're part of the future. People have always asked, why hasn't there been more high-end paying jobs here in Homestead? And I've told them, we have been a bedroom community. And not only that, Homestead historically has not wanted anything to happen here. They wanted to stay a small town, which I enjoy, small town living. And so, but at the moment, we have jobs that are going to come. Mark my words, if that company establishes themselves here, more will come behind and follow and build within the industrial park. And so we are in a very good position here in the City of Homestead. Technology jobs are going to happen there. Now, I was not on council when Copart and FPL came and got their product in. And so I don't recall if the council, the mayor is definitely there. I'm clearly not in support of Copart, but I'm not sure about the FPL. I would have to double check on FPL. I don't know if he was for or against it. And so he can answer that question if he was for or against it, if anything.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, do you have a question repeated or no?
No, I'm good, and I would be happy to explain my positions and correct the fairy tale that you just heard for the last 3 minutes. Technology jobs are coming here, but the question was about the Park of Commerce. They're not coming to the Park of Commerce. The blockchain mining is not coming to the Park of Commerce. You know why? Because the deal is that they need to be where they can utilize City of Homestead electricity, because we have the ability to provide that service. The Park of Commerce is in the FPNL service territory. So is the racetrack, but we've got a carve out for that. So that's where they plan to start. So, you know, let's answer the question. Let's be honest. Blockchain technology, Bitcoin mining is not coming to the Park of Commerce. Neither are the 1,000 jobs, at least, that could have been put on the 100 acres that was consumed by Copart. I vehemently oppose that. I am still at a loss to this day to understand how the majority of my colleagues approved that. It wasn't about military security. It wasn't about increasing the tax base. I wouldn't venture a guess. You asked about FPL specifically. FPL was a 10 to 11 acre park. Well, let's go back and distinguish. Copart, by their own admission, creates 0 jobs on site, except for whenever there's some disaster, they bring cars down there for a very limited amount of time. They are part-time jobs. But for the majority of the time, that land sits vacant. So no real permanent jobs on or near that site. FP&L, by their own admission, and I'll agree, no jobs were created on that site. But there was clear testimony from business owners and business analysts that demonstrated that the availability of that product flowing from that location would in fact create jobs and spur development, not only in the Park of Commerce, but throughout Homestead. It's unfortunate that the Park of Commerce has been piecemealed away. There's just not a lot left. There's no big parcels left. I really hope that someone comes along and offers Copart a ton of money for their land to do something that will create jobs.
Mr. Maldonado, you want to make?
Thank you. So our mayor said that FPL is only folks that can provide power to Park of Commerce. If I heard that correct, then why does the City of Homestead have a substation inside the Park of Commerce? We have a substation because the City of Homestead can provide and does provide power inside that industrial park. And so I guess that's another lawyer move there, trying to move the needle. We do provide homestead power in the Park of Commerce. So what I said was that once that first business comes in, whether it's on the racetrack or not, it's going to spur development. I would like to see as well that Cole Park deal be sold. And I think at some point it is, because we're gonna have businesses that are gonna come down here and want to move in a Park of Commerce because of that technology and our unique position as a city to take advantage of that new technology that's coming. And so I didn't support the Cole Park deal. I was not there when it happened. I still don't support it. I think that, and I hope that someone will come and buy it from them and develop and bring jobs. Technology jobs that are going to come, because that first one, when it hits the ground, it's going to open up a new level of business here in Homestead. And the City of Homestead does have a substation there where they'll be able to take advantage of it.
Well, do one more minute and we're done.
I can do about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Just because we have a substation in the Park of Commerce that shoots power over to the racetrack does not mean we power the Park of Commerce. Don't be misled. That is just a distraction.
Okay, people ready to move on.
Yeah. Move on.
Okay, Mayor Lossberg. This question's been asked before, but fair to ask it again. In the 2019 general election, only 10% of the registered voters voted. In our recent primary, only 8% of the registered voters cast ballots. Part of the reason for this is that the voters feel disconnected from our government. Their feeling is that every 2 years, the candidates tell them what they want to hear, and in the intervening period, it's business as usual. As mayor, what will you do to change this?
It's interesting. The number of voters turning out has been level for many, many years. And a little factoid about the last election, about 400 or 500 of those who we would have expected to vote didn't vote, but 400 to 500 new voters showed up at the polls. The old adage is you can, lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Mr. Maldonado hit on a few minutes ago. We have evolved, unfortunately, into a bedroom community. People have to get up early. Unfortunately, a lot of them leave. They get home late. This is just a place where they lay their head on the pillow. I'm confident that as we return to be a job-filled, diversified job-filled community where folks have the opportunity to stay at home, that's just going to be a natural offshoot. Participation is going to be a natural offshoot. My son, who's the biggest political junkie in this room, did some research a couple of years ago and found that in the 1960s, Homestead had a 75% voter turnout rate. But we all worked here. We all knew each other. If you weren't a city employee or a policeman, you knew one or were related to one. And again, I think that as folks are able to stay closer to home, as we create more jobs here, they will become more engaged. I'm hearing on the campaign trail that folks don't know. They don't know what's going on, despite social media, despite city flyers and emails and postings. They didn't realize Amazon was in our backyard. They thought it was just the one up by the airbase. They didn't know Target was coming here. They didn't know Sprouts was coming here. Didn't know that the Chick-fil-A is not going to Florida City, that it's coming to Homestead. So, it was a good reminder to me that as we emerge from the pandemic, we've got to all of us have to do a better job of communicating to make people feel engaged. Now, this is one of those areas where we strongly disagree. I will take a quality voter over a quantity voter deciding our future any day of the week. And to move our elections just to have bigger turnout is not, in my opinion, the answer.
Question,
Okay. This question's been asked before, but it bears asking again. In the 2019 general election, only 10% of the registered voters voted. In our recent primary, only 8% of the registered voters cast ballots. Part of the reason for this is that the voters feel disconnected from our government. Your feeling is that every 2 years, the candidates tell them what they want to hear, and in the intervening period, it is business as usual. As mayor, what will you do to change this?
Thank you. You know, I actually did something, and I didn't have to become the mayor to do it. Again, right place, right time. When I came into the City of Homestead as a council member, I remember walking into that old, the old City Hall site, and I remember walking into the mail room, and I saw our public information office, which is a little rack server with a VCR with a replaying of some type of programming. If you recall, we had Channel 70 that AT&T offered the City of Homestead in order to use for public information. Since my background is technology, and technology was emerging, and I was part of it, and when we brought in the new city manager, I said to him, we do so much here in the City of Homestead, and no one knows what we're doing. And that is the reason why no one comes out to vote, because we have no sense of transparency of what's happening. So when I asked the city manager, the only thing I asked him when he came in was to make sure that we implement technology to make sure that we're getting the message out to the people. And you recall when the new City Hall site was built, within what was designed to be an emergency operations center was doubled as a studio where we could now start disseminating information on all technology platforms. So that's when you started seeing the programming in Channel 70, where Josh is still there, giving an update. That I'm glad that the mayor has been able to use that to talk about all the good things we're doing in Homestead. My job is, as a technology solution provider, is to provide a solution when I see a problem. The problem is there was no engagement. We got the engagement. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those platforms, YouTube. Now you could go and take advantage and see everything that the City of Homestead is doing. So you could go back and see all the good things we've done. We could only go so back now. But as a mayor, I will continue to have virtual town hall meetings, which we've had. I'm aware of that technology. I've implemented it for my clients. And that's something that I will continue to use as a platform to communicate with our residents. Virtual town hall meetings, coffee with the mayor, and invite folks to sit down and talk about the issues. I will come out. I've walked a lot. If you don't have noticed, I'm down to 206 pounds from 230 pounds. And it's simply because I walked and knocked on a lot of doors and I spoke to the people. And you're right. When I go to the door, they said, you only come here during election time. Well, I said, well, now you're going to be able to hold me accountable and make sure I do the job.
Thank you. Next question is for the mayor. Now that we have our new city hall, the old city hall site appears to have been forgotten. Coupled with this is the fact that apparently a large amount of debt has been accumulated against the property. What can you tell us about the status of and your plans for the old city hall?
Very timely question. So let's go back. When many years ago when I was on council, the decision was made to, and we espoused the idea that locating a city hall downtown would be one of the many pieces of the puzzle to do a revitalized downtown. The idea was to set aside the money from the sale of land in the Park of Commerce to allocate to build that city hall. And we did that. And I left council in 2007. Well, when the boom went bust, and I don't know how many years they did it, a couple of administrations went in and they kept borrowing from from the interest that was accumulating on that several $1 million. The next thing you know, they were whittling away at that several $1 million to balance budgets sometime after 2007, and I don't know how far into the bust that happened. So fast forward, they finally decided to build the city hall and borrowed, round numbers, $10 million to put with the money that was left from the sale of the land Department of Commerce to build the city hall. So to your point, today, there is debt of approximately $8.1 million on that city hall site. We just refinanced that debt. The principal and interest payments on that debt cost the city $662,000 a year. It's a little bit north of $1,800 a day, day after day after day. That site's been vacant a long time. And should that building have been vacated? Clearly. I mean, it's a sick building. I'm not disparaging the fact that the building was vacant. But that is the prime of the prime corner. We had the discussion last night. It's going to take a special project there. It languished for many years. Under my urging and nudging of the city manager, we finally put it out there to take proposals, and we're in the process now, and would love to have the opportunity, if time permits, to talk about what transpired last night at the council meeting as to moving that forward to be a reuse to wipe out that debt, produce some income, produce taxes, produce utility revenue, and a whole lot of amenities for our community.
Mr. Malnado, would you like the question repeated?
Yes, please.
Now that we have our new city hall, the old city hall site appears to have been forgotten. Coupled with this is the fact that apparently a large amount of debt has been accumulated against the property. What can you tell us about the status of and your plans for the old city hall site?
Well, I will say that part of that question where it says it was forgotten, it was not forgotten. We had to wait for the new cyber library to be developed in order to move and break away from Miami-Dade County and that old library that looked the same when it was opened back, 60 years ago. So we, the City of Homestead, wanted to deliver a better product for our community. And again, my background in technology, if we're going to make kids get involved and get a good education, we need to be able to give them a product that they could learn, use, and train with. And that's why when you go to the library, you have a lot of technology that's built in. So you have virtual reality, you have 3D printing machines, you have a lot of the environment where kids can learn. And so it wasn't that we forgot about it, is that we had to wait for the cyber layer to finish, which of course I recall Mayor Lawson was coming the week before that. I had the pleasure of being there myself. And so it was about time. And so, but at the same way the mayor just said that, at his urging, he went out for bid to see what type of product was going to come down. Well, we had 4 bidders come in, and according, and I would agree with you, and hopefully you would shed some light about that conversation yesterday about the 2 last bidders that are on the table and the type of product that they're going to bring, which, correct, the mayor laws there, solid property sitting there, yes, there's a debt there, what can we do to resolve that? And so the 4 bidders that came in all brought products that resembled a location like in downtown Doral, which is called City Center, or City of Doral, something to that effect. But it's a mixed use, and so you're going to have, from my understanding that I heard last night, and if I'm correct, the mayor could correct me, that they're going to have affordable housing developed there, up to 350 units that are going to be put on that property. And so they're also going to bring products that are going to be beneficial for the community, which is there's I believe some type of business plaza with retail on the bottom, where they're going to be able to help out the community. Congratulations to Ms. Sorrentino and all the members of the Arts Committee, because in that was included that there was going to be a gallery, which they've been working for a long time, and I'm glad to see that they're finally able to get it. So somewhere in that deal that's on the table, we have an arts gallery that people are going to be able to go out and enjoy. We have some nonprofits that are gonna have, they're gonna get some space there. We're gonna have some reduced rates in the rent that will allow business people to start businesses here in Homestead. But there will be 350 units that are gonna be developed on that, and I believe they're affordable housing. And I would like to talk more about that. You want to do that?
Sure, as the discussion, let's back up. No decision was made last night other than to have the two proposers that remained in the mix to come back and give us their final proposals. One of the proposals clearly says we're going to satisfy your debt and we're going to give you other monies for a ground lease. Some of the initial proposals did provide for affordable housing. In my mind, that's a no-go. The conversation we had last night was that your product needs to be overwhelmingly market rate larger apartments. We need that kind of product for people. If you want to come to Homestead and rent an apartment and you can pay out of pocket market rate, there is no place for you. Young people don't want homes. A lot of older people don't want freestanding homes. So it is really not accurate to characterize it as affordable housing at this point. Not with my vote.
Mr. Mayoral, you want to?
Thank you. I recall one of the vice mayor actually made this thing, that she distinguished the question. Do we want quality of life or do we want to bring in money to pay off the debt and to have, how much money? Was it a couple $1 million a year? I wasn't sure. But, and they also said on the record that developer that was clearly seen to be the favorite, that this process could not move forward without those 350 units that are affordable in order to make sure that the project is worth. No, he's correct. It was not, they didn't vote on it, but I think they should have just stopped that as a whole. Because I think there is that is the gem of Homestead. And why didn't the mayor go out to the community and ask for their opinion of what we think should happen there? Nope, just went out for bid. We knew what was going to happen. You were going to get a product of affordable housing because that's what they're developing all around us. The right thing to do is to go out to the community, ask, what would you like to see there? And what can we put there that's going to benefit all of Homestead? Because you guys, like myself, recall watching fireworks there and at the Harris Field, and there's a lot of good things that happen. And that is a prime piece of property left that the city owns. Yes, we have a debt of $8 million on it, but are we going to sell it to have affordable housing, mixed units? And is that a product that everyone's aware of and okay with? I would have went out as a mayor, town hall meeting, hey city, this is what we want to do. This is a big piece of property that we have. What do you think we should do here? I would want to make sure that we pay off the debt and bring a product that's going to give us jobs, high quality paying jobs that have to do with technology. It's the perfect location. We have the future metro rail running by there. We have our utility plant that's right across the street. And it's in a prime location to be a technology hub that could change the face of Homestead. So I would have stopped it and made sure that you, the citizens of Homestead, was aware of the product that's coming here. And I guess the question is, are you okay with 350 new units of affordable housing? That's on the table.
Okay, so gentlemen, let's move on. Next question is for Mr. Maldonado. Another property that is of interest to the residents is the Homestead Baseball Stadium site. What can you tell us about your plans for this site?
Thank you. You know, I recall we did try, council, let me just back up. Prior councils, maybe they had no option. Back in 1992, Hurricane Andrew came. We were, 92, what was that? That was, City School, right? Yeah, City School, high school. I remember, yeah, high school. And so the baseball stadium came, Hurricane Andrew hit. From what my understanding is that they said, we can't do anything here. Here are the keys, have a nice day and enjoy it. And from that time forward, the city was always trying to sell it. I recall Judy Wallman spoke when she was on council. I came in when she was on there, and she spoke about that project. I recall the mayor saying, was it the white elephant or something? So they said it was I guess a saying that goes with it. It's just something that is sitting there and costing us a lot of money. When I got to the city council, it was costing the city $1 million to operate an empty stadium. $1 million. We reduced that to $500,000 to maintain that property. And so we went further. Remember that we had to use it temporarily as a police station. After that, unfortunately, it could not be salvaged because another hurricane came and damaged the property. To fix the roof on the stadium was going to cost us $1 million. And what I did when I was on council is I put on a line item budget in order to do a study to see what is going to be the best use of that property. And so the staff went out and they came back with a report, and the report said two major things. One, tear down the stadium because it's costing you $500,000 a year. It's going to cost you $1 million to repair it, and you don't have a use for it still. And so it was torn down. And two, we then launched to make sure that that was going to be kept within the City of Homestead ownership and develop kind of a international soccer stadium where our kids did not have to travel because we don't have the finances and the funding for it, so they won't have to travel. So why aren't kids traveling to Homestead and playing soccer in here? And so I launched that effort, which I see that is still moving and coming to fruition. The mayor spoke about it, that this will be a park for everyone. It's going to have soccer and some other things on it. It's been talked about in the past. We've been working on it. It's just now still moving forward.
Mayor Loston, about the bus repeated or not?
Yeah, I think the question basically, what's the plans for that site?
Exactly.
Yeah, one little piece was left out of the last answer. Let's not forget, $3 million was spent to retrofit a building for a temporary police station, and then they tore it down. A $3 million renovation. Were they manicuring the grass out there for $500,000 a year? That's what I'm talking about when I say it's cutting the fat. There is no reason mowing that derelict site and watching after a boarded up building should have cost that kind of money. Okay, so now that we have our history straight, we'll move forward. It is true. We have a Parks Master Plan underway. There's a preliminary drawing that has already been reviewed by Homestead Air Reserve Base for compatibility. Part of that site lies under the flight path. We didn't want to get anywhere down the line without having their blessings on it. You're right, it will be something that attracts hundreds, if not thousands of people here to tournaments. Soccer, softball, baseball, you name it, we're going to have it there. It's the real East Side community amenity that's been sorely lacking. We're going to fund it by grants. We're going to fund it by Parks Impact fees. We're going to fund it with philanthropy. I've already been in touch with several philanthropic families that would love to donate significant amounts of money to put their name on a given baseball or softball field, but it was neglected, and I think the saying that Ms. Waldman used to have for it was pink elephant.
That's it.
Pink elephant, because the building was pink. I always used to think that before they spent the $3 million for the temporary police station, we should sell the filming rights and have a pyrotechnic demolition out there, and they could splice that into movies for the next several decades, but that didn't come to fruition. But there's so many cutting-edge things that we're going to do out there. Solar lighting. We're going to do turf so that the soccer fields can be used every day, so they won't have to rest between games. A lot of neat things coming.
Okay. Yes, I do.
Thank you. remember, so from 2001 to 2007, and before I came on council in 2009, we're paying $1 million a year to maintain an empty field that wasn't even being used. That park has limitations. It's in the ACUs, in the flight zone, so not anything can be developed there. It's a very restricted piece of property. And the reason why I actually got on council was because when I was on the board of the CDD and I found out that prior council allowed all these developers to use a loophole of green space. Every time you build a piece of property, 20% of that property is supposed to have green space, which is like a park or a tot lot. The council prior to me allowed the developers to use a loophole and use those lakes to be that green space, which we cannot use, and we had no parks. That is the reason why I got involved in the City of Homestead Council, because they left the east side of Homestead holding the bag and paying for community development district dollars, an extra tax dollars, about $1,000 of CBD taxes to maintain a lake that they allowed for the developers to use to pull the fill, use it for the development, and we got stuck left holding the bag, paying that to maintain those lakes, and we have no parks on the east side. And so when I came in, we resolved the issue of the 20% green space. I closed that loop. And that's when I started to get to work on this park on the east side, because we had no parks, because our prior council did not act accordingly, and here we are.
Okay, next question is from Mayor Losner. It's been said that it's more difficult and expensive to do business in Homestead than in surrounding communities, and we've lost out on some business opportunities because of this fact. What's your perspective on the situation and what can be done about it?
I completely and totally agree with that sentiment. When I have small-time contractors, electricians, plumbers, plasterers, all tradesmen who are reputable and credible and aren't trying to do something they're not supposed to do, when they call me and talk about the difficulties they have either having a permit issued or a permit inspected and closed out, and that our local people no longer want to do business with the city, we have a problem. I saw that we had a problem with our development services department many years ago when I was in private life, both personally, for clients, and with friends. The answer always seemed to be no. But if you come in and you pay this fee and you plunk down anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 in cost recovery, we can probably make this happen for you maybe 9 to 12 months from now. I'd had enough, and I called a meeting of the building community, the development community, attorneys for those entities, lobbyists for those entities, and had a meeting with our development services director. And they aired their grievances. And I thought we came to some understanding as to the path forward. How can we address your issues? Now look, I'm not an anything goes kind of person. I understand that there's always people who come in and want something that they just shouldn't have. Okay, part of the problem is that our code is very antiquated and needs to be updated. And we've had those public discussions with our development services director, and they've gone nowhere. And the concerns that were expressed in that meeting have gone nowhere. And before I forget, let me point out that the defense from staff and our director always is, we're the cheapest in Miami-Dade County. And a very old, genteel, usually very reserved zoning attorney stood up and said, respectfully, I represent people all over this county in municipalities and before Miami-Dade County, and the City of Homestead is the most difficult and expensive city to deal with. Now, here's what I think the problem is. The system that we have in place promotes that. We have an outsourced director. He's paid a small consulting fee, and then he is paid and charges the cost recovery fee. I believe we should go back to an in-house person that gets paid a flat salary and doesn't get paid to find problems and create delays.
Okay, would you like to continue, Mr. Markle?
Yes.
It has been said that it is more difficult and expensive to do business in Homestead than in the surrounding communities, and we've lost out on some business opportunities because of this fact. What is your perspective on the situation and what can be done about it?
You know, it was very frustrating when I came onto city council and I would get constant calls of what the current mayor is saying, that it is hard to do business here in the city of Homestead. I kept saying, why am I getting these calls? I'm supposed to be working on policy, not solving the problems for that developer or this person trying to do business in the city of Homestead. So I agree, it is difficult here, but there's a reason for that difficulty. Let's go back in history and let's see how we got here. When I came in office, that development service bar was set low. Anyone could come in here, you made a phone call, and you got stuff done. Well, you know what happened? Afterwards, when we actually brought in the developer, the development director, Mr. Joe Cordino, when he came in office, that fence was low. We raised it high because everyone was jumping the fence very, very easy. And some of those folks that jumped the fence easy and things were not done properly ended up hurting them. And it cost them thousands of dollars because things were not being done properly in development services before I got into office. So when I got into office, we realized that we had a huge problem and everything that was coming after that. So what we did was hire an independent developer director so that he would not be swayed by anyone trying to bully him and to make sure that they took care of every single person. Because remember, all you had to do was give a call and it was solved. But that's not the way to do business. And so we put an independent contractor in the department to run it. He raised the bar high and he kept it high so that we could, remember I said earlier, we need to right the ship and put everything in order, and that's what we did. So it is, the bar is set high, but it's set to what should be the standard. And what he said was correct. He said that the current director said that we have the lowest. It is the lowest, and it's done properly because that contractor, director, handles many municipalities throughout Miami-Dade County. And in all those counties, they're all working without a problem. And so it was difficult, but it was difficult for a reason because everyone was jumping the fence. And when I got on there and I saw the problem, we solved it with an independent developer. And I'm sure at some point it'll come up where he's going to mention that, you know, we need to get rid of him. Well, just want you to know that that is the barrier and the fence that we need to keep high. So if that person is not there, and the right person not there, it could really hurt us.
Okay. You want a minute?
Absolutely. Wish I could take an hour. Again,
We got time.
I agree. It's not about it shouldn't be about who you are, it's about what you're asking for. And we need a professional who upholds the rules, but the system we have now rewards this director to drag his feet, find problems, and create new reviews. His consulting fee is $108,000 a year. You know how much cost recovery fees were billed by him last year to people making applications? Over $800,000 a year. He answers to the manager. This is not politics. If we hired a professional And our system is a manager form of government. That in-house professional that is paid a salary, just like the city manager or any assistant city manager, is going to make things happen the right way, rather than line his pockets by continuing to delay and send people back to go and collecting another $200.
Mr. Maldonado, you want to? You don't have to take it if you don't want it.
Yeah, no, I just the point is that, again, he's correct. It doesn't have to be this director. The question, does it have to be in-house? Can it be contracted? How do other locations do it? And it's a discussion that we could have. But remember why he was put there. He was put there to make sure that no one was jumping the fence like they used to do back in the days, where my predecessors allowed a lot of things to happen that should have not happened here. You don't know how many times I had to deal with, I remember George Wright saying that they said that I can have this lot here and this is all good, and then what happened? He had to pay thousands of dollars because it wasn't done properly. But guess what? Everything now is done by the book. And those fees that are talking about $800,000 fees are the same fees that whoever comes behind them are going to have to pay as well.
Okay, let's move on. Our next question is our last question of the night, and it goes to Mr. Maldonado first. We like to finish the questions with the one that is on everyone's mind, density. The city has a comprehensive plan, future land use map, and zoning regulations that are intended to balance development with the resources available and the quality of life in the city. Yet in almost every instance when developers bring forward projects, zoning variances are requested to take exception to these requirements, be it a reduction in street width, or reduced lot size, or smaller setbacks. The theme is always the same: packing more dwelling units onto a piece of property than were intended by the city regulations. As mayor, what will you do to stem this tide?
Thank you, that's a great question. And again, it leads to why I got involved here in the City of Homestead. I came into office and inherited all the issues that we're dealing with still today. Why do I say that? Because if what we're talking about in development and variances were all allowed to happen on the east side, none of those variances are talking about the northwest or the northeast or the southwest. We're talking about the east side of Homestead. You guys remember there was a 2-lane road through 12th Street, potato fields on each side. Our mayor was on council when those agricultural lands that were potato fields were turned into residential development. And because of poor planning, we had to go in there and make sure that we worked with what was left when I came on here, and I had to deal with to allow what they already had development rights for. I could not stop when they had the development rights that he allowed. And so, if any variants that were allowed, there were variances that actually benefited the community. For example, Oasis with Lennar that had development rights to make townhomes came to us and said, you know what, the market is changing and they don't want townhomes, they actually want single family homes. And guess what? That was a good variance and we allowed it to happen. But guess what? If I would have said, no, you can't change that variances, they still would be able to develop what they were allowed back in the early 2000s. Remember, I came here in 2009, Mayoral was up and running, Waterstone was up and running, the house was up and running, Oasis was starting to be built, the bus came in, when we went from boom to bus is when I came in, and all the development of the rest of Oasis was held up because the market was no longer there at the moment. But the rights were still there prior to my coming into office. And so when the rest of the development that came in, that brought in all this traffic that we're now talking about, that was done before my time, you know, I'd like to ask him, why didn't you fight to make sure that we had less density than what's there? Because I did not allow not one more house per unit that is allowed on our code. Not one more unit, which is 10 homes per acre. But right now, in the current development that we're talking about in the middle homestead and the old city hall site, we have 350 units of affordable housing that's being discussed.
Mayor, also, would you like to have the question repeated?
Please.
Okay. We'd like to finish the questions with one that is on everyone's mind, density. The city has a comprehensive plan, future land use map, and zoning regulations that are intended to balance development with the resources available and the quality of life in the city. Yet in almost every instance when developers bring forward projects, zoning variances are requested to take exception to these requirements. Be it a reduction of street width, a reduced lot size, or smaller setbacks, the theme is always the same: packing more dwelling units onto a piece of property than were intended by the city regulations. As mayor, what will you do to stem this tide?
Same thing I've always done, and that's stand, and sometimes, many times, stand alone against that. Now, let's back up. Not all variances are bad, and that's kind of an offshoot of our very archaic code. But remember, until we have a different development services director who doesn't charge by the hour for those services, there's no motivation to change the code because he charges by application. But there are, the setback, you're right. The setback variances, the side, the front, the back, it's all about density, density, density. And I've said many times earlier tonight, if I had my druthers, the entire development of what's left in this community would be larger estate homes on larger lots. We have enough townhouses, we've got enough villas. There's something for everybody except the high end, and we are not diversified enough in this community. And there is a huge potential on the west side for redevelopment. And again, let me reiterate, it's not 350 units, and it's not affordable. Density, everything that's wrong in this community is an outgrowth of the variances and the density that were granted over the course of many years. Traffic, potholes, crowded streets, lack of commercial development. Give you an example of how our community differs from the community that our development services director is the mayor of. The average taxable value of a homesteaded house in Homestead is right at $100,000. That's pretty pathetic considering that folks are paying north of $400,000 for tiny units now. In Pinecrest, it's $1 million. I think we need to be more aspirational with what we allow to be built. Variances and density are one thing. For me, it's about the product. What is really needed to enhance value and deal with quality of life in this community. And I hope that I have the opportunity to sit down with a development services director and a council that's serious about modernizing our code, that minimizes delays in good development and puts a really tight wrought iron fence against bad development.
Okay, that's the end of our questions. Oh, do you want to?
Yes, I do want to rebut. Thank you. So I hear you, but I see something different, Mayor. There was 2 developments in the southwest area. We're talking about density, right?
Yes.
Right now, the density is 10 homes per acre. Am I correct?
There are spots with higher permitted density.
So, but you didn't answer the question. There was 10 homes per acre. He says there's areas that allow more. Well, there was 2 properties that he allowed to pass and was a support of it, where there was 35 units per acre that were developed on those property too. And there was, if you recall, John Alger's farmland, he did not have development rights no longer on that property. He had 1 home per 5 acres. And because of the Air Force Base, he lost it. But our mayor fought to make sure that he got that 1 home per 5 acre back on there. So I hear you, but I see something different. If he didn't have the development rights anymore, why did he allow ag back 1 per 5 acre? And if you want to reprove what you're saying and that I'm not for development at high density, then the current project at the old City Hall site, which is going to put 350 units regardless of whether affordable or with amenities or at market rate, 350 units on that property per acre is going to be high. And so if you're saying that you're going to stop it, the proof would have been yesterday, and he had the chance to do it and did not do it.
Again, nothing has been approved. I have stated my objections to that number and that density at that site, and we are far from a final plan there. And again, there's two sides to every story. I don't happen to believe, as did a majority of the council, that the Algers ever lost their development rights. One house on 5 acres on 200 acres. The rest of the city, come on guys, that's stretching the truth a little bit. There's been a lot of stretching the truth tonight. Love to, if any of you, when this is over, need any clarification or any questions, I'll stay here all night and I'll speak truthfully and forthrightly every time.
Okay.
So will I.
Okay, you have both spoken very well tonight. We've reached the end of our questions. I would like to offer each of the two candidates a 2-minute opportunity to close, starting with Mr. Maldonado.
Thank you. You know, I'm actually happy that my parents decided to move down here in the City of Homestead. I have great memories here in the City of Homestead. My father actually worked for Dr. Crow, for those of you who've grown up here. Dr. Crow, my dad worked with him, and I remember hanging out with Dr. Crow when I was but a child. And so I got a good taste and representation of what is Homestead. And I grew up playing baseball here, I went to school here, I enjoyed what Homestead is and the ability to know your neighbors and love one another. When I decided to stay here and get married and raise my family, I moved into the city limits of Homestead. And it was because of that decision that I moved in here that I realized all the work that needed to be done in the city of Homestead. When I came on board as the HOA president of my new community and ended up coming into the city of Homestead as an elected official, it was because I saw that we were going to be moving forward, and you needed leadership that was going to be representative to all of Homestead. I grew up here. I didn't come from a wealthy family. My father came from Colombia when he was 24 years old. I was born in Stamford, Connecticut, raised here in the city of Homestead since I was 5 years old. My wife got married. Unfortunately, I lost her to cancer, and you folks know that. And after that, I raised my 2 daughters here. While I was running my business, raising 2 daughters, single family now because I lost my wife, and I still serve with all my heart and passion the city of Homestead. If that is not commitment to making Homestead better, then I don't know what is. Once, I actually remember the year that I lost Lisette was April 24th of 2012. And the last day of the year, and December 31st, early in the morning, having breakfast with my daughters, I asked them the decision. Mama's gone, and she would want us to move on and do good things. I'm asking you, my daughters, do you want me just to be dad and just work the business here in Homestead? Or be dad, work the business in Homestead, and be a councilman in the city of Homestead? My daughters told me, Dad, you've always been a leader in the community, and Mom wanted you to do it as well. And so all we ask is that you have the internet working and food in the refrigerator, and you could go out and serve the city of Homestead. And so I did that for the last 10 years. And I was a single family man, and I went through a lot, financial hardships, and I stayed in there and did my best job. That is commitment to the city of Homestead. That is my love to the city of Homestead. And my wife, I wish she would have been here because she would have been proud of all the things that we would have done. My daughters are here today, still living here. And now, guess what? I have a grandson that's here. And we're committed to staying in Homestead and being a part of it. So whatever happens, November 2nd, I want you to know that I will always be here to help you in any way I can. God bless you. Thank you for this time and this opportunity to share my story with you, the residents of Homestead. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you, Mayor Lawson.
Thank you. We all agree and we all recognize that Homestead is on the cusp of being in a tremendous position. I'm sorry. I think we all recognize that Homestead is in a tremendous position for, let's face it, we are the last frontier. That's what caused the housing boom here 20 years ago. We're the last frontier. We blew that opportunity. We blew the opportunity to do that right, and we're still missing the mark on that. I hope we can continue to do better. But when it comes to being at the cutting edge of drawing technology and creating jobs all across the spectrum and being a desirable community, not because of relative affordability, but because we're really a nice place to live, that to me is the measure of success. So I ask you tonight to think about my record on council, my last 2 years as mayor, and ask yourself, it's about who do you trust? Who do you trust to stand up and give you the unvarnished, full and complete story? Who do you trust to stand up for the community? And who do you trust to be in the room to go toe-to-toe with these proposers and these developers and anybody else who comes in this community by virtue of my educational experience and my work history and background? Who do you trust? And I understand that we have this new economy now, but everybody knows where I go to work every day when I get up. You can find me. I have identifiable income, and I'm all over this community. And I would invite you all to take a deep dive into where I'm reporting, where my income comes from, and where my opponent income comes from, or at least is not showing where it's coming from, and ask yourself, is that someone who we really want to be looking at and crafting a budget and dealing with people who are potentially bringing tens of millions of dollars to this community? The last 2 years have really been a challenge, but I think we are at the edge of accomplishing great things, and I'd like to be the mayor to continue to be the face and voice of you and your community, to sit at the table, to sit in those rooms, to go to bat for you and get the best deals for the city of Homestead. And thank you all for coming tonight and listening to us.
Yes, I'd like to thank you both for coming tonight and for your willingness to serve our city. Let's give them a round of applause. There'll be a video link after tonight's meeting shared on social media showing the event, and